American citizens. Without arrest, without charges, without a trial. And in order to prove that, he's already done it on 3 occasions. And also, just recently, the National Defense Authorization Act. You probably didn't know about that from the national TV. They don't talk about it and tell you and warn you about it. But thank goodness, a lot of people that I have met on the campaign trail are very much aware of the danger that was buried in that bill. And of course, the danger is that they repealed posse comitatus, which prohibits the military from being involved in enforcing, domestic law. And now they said that the U.S. military has the explicit authority to arrest any American if you are an associated force as a suspect that might do harm to our country. Associated force, what does that mean? You looked at a web page, you donated to a charity that you thought was authentic, you were in a room, you went to an anti-war meeting. Oh, that's an associated force. So therefore, you can now be a target to be arrested by the military, absolutely denied that you can even talk to an attorney, put in prison indefinitely, some secret prison that does not have to be domestic. That is not what America is all about. We need to spread that message, and we also need to get enough people in Washington to repeal that type of an authority. Economically, we've been in a lot of trouble for a long time, even as far back as the Depression. It was said that we got into the Depression because we had too much freedom of the marketplace and we had this wicked old gold standard. And guess what? Since that time, they have further undermined our economy, and we are poorer than ever before. We're in worse shape financially than we were in the Great Depression. We were a creditor nation back then, and the size of government was much smaller, and our attitude about civil liberties and overseas spending was quite different. But now, today, once again, we've had the climactic end to a system where we were systematically consuming our wealth. We did this by overspending, promising everybody anything they wanted. And we became the promoters of entitlements for everything from cradle to grave. That people that people could have free education, free medical care, and free everything, free housing, and free food stamps, the whole works. Now, it sounds good, and it's wonderful if that could work. But the government doesn't have anything. They have to steal it from somebody in order to give it to somebody. Now, immediately when we embarked on this notion that an entitlement is a right, which is a very dangerous notion, the results weren't quite yet in because we were so wealthy. But we became a nation that was more concerned about just sort of spreading the wealth around and the government having power and the special interests got control. And generally we forgot about what the principles of liberty were all about. Where does production come from? It comes from your basic right to your life, the right to your liberty, the right to work, and it should be the right to keep the fruits of your labor. Yeah. Understood that and understood the proper role of government, not to be taking care of us from cradle to grave and not running, trying to police the world, guess what? We still wouldn't need an income tax. It wouldn't be necessary. It wasn't necessary up until 1913. Of course, that period of time in 1913, a lot changed. We became much more involved in international spreading of our military. Of course, we had the 16th Amendment to the income tax, preparing the way for big government. And also, we had another little event that occurred in 1913, which we should repeal as quickly as possible, and that was the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Act, as far far as I'm concerned, is an unconstitutional act because the Constitution still says that only gold and silver can be legal tender. You can't print paper money, and there's no explicit authority to have a central bank. And that's the the constitutional argument against it. The economic argument against the Federal Reserve and central banking is they create the crises. They create the bubbles, and the bubbles then are always ended with recessions and depressions and the bursting of the bubble. And look, just recently, in recent history, we've had a NASDAQ bubble, and that collapsed. Well, then we say, well, we'll correct it with a housing bubble because we believe that everybody should have a house, no matter what they qualify for. So well motivated, I'm sure a lot of people thought that was a great idea, except it doesn't work. Who made the money? The people in the derivatives market, the people who were receiving the credit, the builders and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So they did quite well until they got in over their head and went into bankruptcy. So the market says if you go into bankruptcy or you're bankrupt, you should go bankrupt. Because we have developed this system where special interest controlled things, and even though we have this natural consequence of when you destroy a currency, you literally destroy the middle class. And right now, the middle class is shrinking. It is getting poorer. And because it's a special interest government, that the special interests, the powerful special interests on Wall Street and the bankers had been benefiting all this time. Guess when the crisis came and they said, there's a crisis coming and we have these banks and corporations that are too big to fail. Guess what? They got the bailout. The compounding of the problem. The transfer of the wealth from the middle class to a special interest. And this is what happened. But the debt, which should have been liquidated, wasn't liquidated, which is what is necessary. You need to get the debt behind us. So what happened? The people ended up with the debt. We own the debt. Trillions of dollars that the Fed got involved in. They were churning $15 trillion worth of credit. That makes the Congress minuscule when it comes to the dollars involved. And Congress, they don't even have this desire. It's a little bit better over the years, but they have a responsibility. If we don't get rid of the Fed immediately, we at least ought to know every single thing they do and everybody in the Fed. Have continued, and the middle class continues to shrink, and of course the middle class individuals and the poor, they lost their jobs and they lost their houses. So those who